Good morning. This is Dustin Czarny, and welcome to Zoom with Czarny. This is my interview show where I talk to different candidates about running for office and democracy advocates. This week, I am talking to Christina El-Bayadi. She is running for the sole countywide seat this election, family court, and she is a Democrat running for that. And we've actually had some great luck with family court offices and also judicial offices in Onondaga County altogether. There are 4 family court judge seats right now, all Democrat. And this is a 5th seat that has been added because of the case workload of the family court is so high across New York State. So please stay tuned for that interview. And going on right now at the Board of Elections is, well, we're processing registrations and getting ready for the general election. We are thousands of registrations behind, and this week we reached a milestone of having more registered voters than ever before in Onondaga County. We have 8 weeks to go before election day, and registrations continue to come in, and I expect that number to grow by quite a bit. We're right now over 308,000 voters. I think we'll get up to around 315,000 voters by the time this is all done. These are active registered voters, of course. So if you have not done your registration yet, please do so. Don't wait till the last minute. Go to onvote.net. You can check your registration and you can register online. All right. And that's all I got. Please stay tuned for my interview with Christina El-Bayadi. Enjoy. And we're back, and I'm so happy to have my friend Christina El-Bayadi. She's running for family court in Onondaga County. Christina, thank you so much for coming on Zoom with Czarny.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I know you. I know you're incredibly qualified for this seat, and but before we talk about family court itself, let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who Christina El-Bayadi is.
Sure. Well, I am a Syracuse native, so I'm from here. I actually grew up in the Fairways North neighborhood. I always say that I grew up in the greatest neighborhood on the planet, where we were very safe, and we used to ride our bikes around the circle and play night games in the evenings, and essentially kids were just free to play and then come home when it was dinner time. After that, I moved to the Fayetteville area, then to the city of Syracuse, and I currently live on Onondaga Hill. So spent my whole life here. I am a parent of 2 young daughters, Charlotte and Claire. So that takes up a lot of my time, and it's wonderful. And I'm also a support magistrate in family court. I've been an attorney that's practiced in that area for about 13-ish years now. So those are the high points about who I am, a little bit about my background to start us off. Oh, I think I lost the audio.
That's me. 5 years into this, and I still forget to turn off the Zoom mic every now and then. But you know what? Don't we all, right? So,
absolutely.
But you grew up here, and before we get into the family court position, but you're a first-time candidate, right? This is your first run for office.
Well, I ran for town board a few years ago, but my first, yes, on a countywide level, absolutely. This scale is new to me.
Well, it's your first run for judge too.
Yes,
right?
it is. Correct.
Yeah, and so, and you're running on a countywide level, but why family court? Why did you decide to put your name into the hat for this huge undertaking and run countywide for family court judge?
Absolutely. Great question. So, I've explained to people, and I think the best way to really explain it is I've cared about children and families for as long as I can remember. I still recall being about maybe 9, 10 years old and creating the Mothers Helpers Club in my old neighborhood, because I had this desire I've always adored children and to nurture. So even when I was a young child, I had that desire. And I think it stems from that, as well as being a child of divorce. So I personally, myself and my two brothers, my parents divorced when I was about 11 years old. And I think that's what really drew me to practice family law and matrimonial law. So I think as much of an impact as I can make to soften the blow, so to speak, of families and children going through the process of divorce, of which parent is going to get custody. And those aren't the only things a family court judge does as far as custody and parenting time. But I think that my own personal experiences will help guide me in making such important decisions about children and families.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a child of divorce as well. I mean, so much of America is. My parents got divorced around the same time. I was 10 years old when they got divorced.
Yeah,
Um, and it, the, people forget about like just how many people avail themselves of the family court system. And that is one of the reasons why Governor Hochul has created this seat. This is
right.
a different seat. It is a new creation. We went from 4 judges to 5 this year. So when you take the bench, hopefully, that it'll be a fifth justice added to the family court system. Is that indicative of just the number of cases that it's going through family court right now? Is that why we needed to add this seat?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is the volume of cases, and they're not simple. It's not just a quick formula. I mean, they require and deserve careful consideration. And that's exactly why this new seat was created. I mean, in my current job as a support magistrate, just last year alone, I had almost 1,200 dispositions, so resolutions in cases. I mean, we absolutely need to ensure that we can focus on quality, and that shouldn't be impacted or driven by the quantity. We have to be able to give time and consideration to these important decisions.
You got to my next question. I was going to talk about your support magistrate position. You mentioned that, so let's dive into that right now.
Oh, sure.
Because while you're a first time candidate for family court, you're no stranger to the system. You've been a support magistrate for how many years now?
Just over 3 years.
Wow. And why don't you tell the audience what is a support magistrate? And why do you think that that will lead you to be able to serve as a family court judge?
Sure. So there are many similarities. I'll talk about first what it means to be a support magistrate. So my primary areas of the law are paternity and or parentage, issues of child support, both initial supports as well as modifications, and spousal support. So for example, if let's say that folks get divorced and they were divorced in 2020 during the pandemic. Well, it's more than 3 years later, and or maybe somebody makes a lot more money or a lot less money, or there's some other change in circumstances like a college expense or a private school tuition. Or perhaps there are 4 children and 2 live with the mom and 2 live with dad. Or perhaps there are 2 children and one moved out of the house of either parent and one still remains at home with one of the parents. So determinations have to be made about basic support, which are basically its contribution towards a child's food, shelter, and clothing, about health insurance expenses, who's going to pay for the out-of-pocket prescription expenses, the premium itself, things like the eye doctor, co-pays, and then of course, reasonable work-related childcare.
So it's you're really helping to make sense of the system in the judgments that are coming down. You're helping to bring the people together and kind of figuring out how to live
Well,
with each other,
how to navigate that.
how to
Is
navigate.
the
Yeah,
child or how are these children going to be supported?
right.
And oftentimes, custody is involved. 2 people will come into my court and both will claim to be the custodial parent. Sometimes I assign attorneys for the children. So I think there are similarities in my experience as a support magistrate directly tie into the job of a family court judge because you preside over all of your cases, you make findings of fact and orders, court orders, and you also you have to really get a sense of people all day long. I mean, like I said, we have a high volume of cases. So who knows, every 15 minutes or every hour, another case is called, and you have to be able to reset and start new. And, you can't let the fact that you may be having a bad day or a good day affect your decision. You need to be even tempered, and you need to be able to really read people and get a sense of whether or not what they're telling you is true, because you're faced with a decision about the stability, in the case of a family court judge, stability and safety, okay, oftentimes, of a child.
So how did you get that position? You've been doing it for 3 years now.
Yes. So, yeah,
What
great
qualified
question.
you to get that position?
Sure. So it's actually you apply for the job, and then if you are hired, you get appointed. So the periods of appointment, the first set is a 3-year term, and then after that, it's every 5 years. And you actually have to reapply for your own position. So in my case, I've already been reappointed for another term. Obviously, that will be different if I am elected, and they'll replace me with someone different. But before I became a support magistrate, I worked primarily at the Hiscox Legal Aid Society, in the areas, of course, of family law and matrimonial law as well. For a long time, my primary role was actually a divorce attorney, surprisingly, if coming from a child of divorce. So
That
I did
happens
that for
more
many
often than
years.
not, I think. I'm talking to a lot of divorce attorneys, and one of the reasons they get into the field is because of the early trauma in the child, trauma in
Right.
it's a traumatic thing. That was kind of imprinted on them, right?
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So I worked there, like I said, for about 10 years roughly. And, when I started out, I was a family law associate. And I actually started out in the child support parts, including the support magistrate who was sitting in my own part back in the day. And I also handled matters of custody, family offense petitions. So that means when someone's seeking an order of protection, okay, fearing for their safety or their children's, and seeking an order of protection from family court. I also did some work, eviction defense in city court. I also worked on unemployment cases with the Department of Labor. So a number of those at one time, actually, as a civil attorney, it was matrimonial, family law, unemployment, eviction defenses. And we used to do this period of time during the day called open interview hours, where folks would come in, they had numerous issues, just a variety, you never knew really what was coming, and you would help them on the spot, sort of a triage situation as far as legal issues.
So you said you were appointed. Well, who does the appointing? Who makes that decision?
Mm-hmm. So the appointment, I suppose I don't know who technically does the appointing, but I was hired by the administrative judge, as well as the court clerk, and a few other magistrates were actually in my interview. So it had to be a unanimous decision. Oh, and actually the supervising family court judge was also part of that as well. So
And that's your peers, right? I mean, these are the people that you
correct.
appeared in front of, and they judged you as worthy. And this wasn't like a governor's appointment or something like that. This is not a political appointment. It is
Right.
something that is done based on merit and based on the peers that you've already worked with on a day-to-day basis in the family court and with Hiscox Legal Aid and other courts as well, correct?
Right, exactly. The administrative law judge, the administrative judge, had some familiarity with me because I practiced in those courts. I, of course, knew Judge Mulroy from my matrimonial practice. And so, yes, there was essentially a panel interview. And then again, I was selected and appointed.
Now, when we talk about judicial races, we don't really talk about the partisan aspect of things too much,
Right.
because and a reminder to the audience, when I interview judicial candidates, I can't go into the issues too much because
Right.
they can't talk about what they're going to rule on. But what we can say is twofold here. I mean, Judge Mulway was a Republican judge, and she's hiring a Democrat. So
Yes. Yep.
that was not obviously, shows your even-handedness and your respect amongst your peers. But also, family court is a countywide seat. But
Mhm.
3 years ago, it was a much different bench than it is now.
It
And
was.
Democrats have been very successful at winning family court positions in odd years and in even years. And obviously, in presidential years, Democrats do much better countywide. In fact, you know, but I think people still think of Onondaga as a red county, but you're running on the
Yeah.
Democratic line. You're running in a presidential year. People have to find you there, and Democrats have
Mhm.
been able to succeed in in that race. So, I mean, why? Well, I mean, I can't ask that question. I'm not going to ask why you think that is, but I wanted to get that out there, and you don't have to answer any of that. That's on me. But let's talk
Well,
about
it's an
family
accurate
court.
statement, right? The two, my colleagues, Judge Zavalia and Judge Plumley, ran in 2023, and both were successful. And they both ran on the Democratic line. So absolutely, I mean, there's no question we've had great success.
That's right, and I think that's and it's just important to remember that's how you get on the
Mhm.
ballot. It is we still have a
Yep,
highly partisan state, and that's what this is, and that you're to be able to do the job, you have to win the job. So, but
that's right.
let's talk about family court because um I a lot of talk has been about mental health issues especially since the pandemic. And
Mhm.
boy, it seems like family court is the place where that is really coming to bear. I mean, I think that's why we're seeing these added caseloads and and now added judges to this. Um,
Mhm.
can you talk about I know you talked a little bit about what it does, but how important is the family court to the structure of Onondaga County as a whole?
No, I would say it's the heart of the court system as a whole. And I think that you're right when you talk about mental health issues. And I just wanted to go back to that briefly because I mean that's the thing about this position and politics as a whole. We're all interconnected. We're all laced together. The issues that often trouble litigants in family court, the housing crisis, mental health services, I mean, these are all intertwined with other local politicians who have control over some of these services that are provided, say, through the Department of Social Services, um, the Department of Children and Family Services. So, we're all intertwined, whether we like it or not. And for the people of Onondaga County, eh, we need to work together for the children, for the families. We need to work together to solve these problems. Again, the housing crisis being in the mental health, you hit the two big ones. Okay, huge. We have to work together to resolve these issues. I think that Syracuse was rated number 2 in child poverty in the nation recently. We've got to work together. It really shouldn't be about partisan interest. It should be about moving everyone together.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of challenges that we have to solve as a country, as a county, as a city, all of
Yeah,
that. And and family court ends up dealing with a lot of the challenges that we haven't solved.
absolutely.
And
Right.
it's
And I hope people realize that.
yeah.
All right. So I hope people realize that when, a parent wants to get their children back, they have no place. And the issue is they have no safe place to live. Oftentimes litigants will come into my court where the Department of Social Services files a petition against them for them to pay support because their children are in foster care. And the department is paying for the children's needs and for their health insurance while they're in foster care. And they will say, I'm working on getting my children back. I need a job. I'm living in my car because I don't have a place to live. I'm on all these wait lists. And they're trying. But until we have housing solutions, it's a trickle down effect. These people
Yeah.
are unfortunately, these folks are stuck.
Yeah,
So,
they're struggling. They're struggling, and that's why we need compassionate and also strict people on family court to be able to protect the
right.
children, but also find ways to reunite families when you can as well. That's
Of
very
course.
important. Um, we mentioned it's a countywide race.
Mhm.
It's very hard to run countywide. It's even harder to run countywide as a judge. There's
Mhm.
restrictions on what you can say, what you can do. You can't fundraise for yourself. There's all kinds of things that you're limited by the judicial code of conduct.
Right.
But what are you doing now? What kind of campaigning is going on? What we got about what at the time this airs, we're going to be around 50 days left to election day.
Yeah, it's coming
So
down to the wire.
yeah, so what have you been doing?
Absolutely. So, so many community events, OCDC events, constantly getting lawn signs out. I say that my mother is the lawn sign queen. She makes a majority of the deliveries, and the requests just are coming in at a steady rate. It's really been humbling, actually, because so many people are coming out of the woodwork. I mean, people that from my neighborhood where I grew up will say, "Oh my goodness, Christina El-Bayadi, I want a lawn sign. I want to spread the word to my new neighbors, et cetera, et cetera." So that's been very humbling. Some canvassing, of course. We've got a Facebook page, a website, where we've got some mini billboards that are going to be going up, and then some large billboards. So I would say, I'm not necessarily reinventing the wheel. We know what works. There's so much data out there about how to advertise, how many eyes will see a certain billboard, or how many ears are listening to a particular radio station. We're really trying to hit all of the high points to put voters on notice.
Yeah, and I mean, in a presidential year, you're running in a different type of year. I mean, in local years and odd years, and even in governor's years. Odd years will have about 30 to 35% turnout, and in governor's
Yes.
years, 55% turnout in Onondaga County. And a presidential year, we'll have 76, 77% turnout. So twice
Yeah.
as many people are getting out there, and so you're not so much trying to turn people out to vote, but you're trying to get the people who are out there to stay on the line and,
And to
and
know who I
basically
am.
and
Absolutely.
know who you are.
Right.
So, you're pretty higher up on the ballot than maybe some of the other races, but it's a short ballot this year because
Yes.
it's a presidential year. Uh,
Right.
you know, what do you say to the presidential voters that only vote for president and only come out for president? What would you say to somebody who to let them know why their vote for family court counts?
Mhm. Well, I would say that the smaller races matter. They matter so, so much. We're all working so hard to get the word out, and sometimes we do get overshadowed by those larger races. Um, but that's what I want people to know. I want people to know that we're working really, really hard. And for things like radio or billboards, there's a set price, actually, which is set by the company. So whether you're a congressional candidate or running for something in your county, you're getting it's the same price. So, that's also something I think the public should know. So
Uh,
we're working hard down ballot. That's my main message. And then as far as family court, I mean, safety and stability of children. Us, I think as a society, as a community, we have to care. We have to care about that. We have to care that our children in our community aren't being neglected, aren't being abused, that someone is looking out for them, and there's a level-headed person who's patient, who's compassionate, who's even tempered, is making the decision about whether or not this child should be removed, which parent should have custody, should there be a shared arrangement. Um, we have to have competent judges.
yeah, and it is so important to vote on every office and make choices in every office. And those are the ones in our area that might be even closer and that every vote will matter even that much more. Well,
Mhm.
Christina, we're kind of getting towards the end of the time that I like to have here on the podcast, but I always like to end with the same question. What haven't
Sure.
we talked about? Now's the time to tell people about something that we haven't talked about. It could be your dog, it could be your kids, it could be some some matter that about family court that we haven't been able to talk about that you wanted to make sure you got out there. Floor is yours.
Sure. Well, I think I would just want people to know that what you see is what you get. I didn't have some master plan and think to myself years and years ago that, oh, my dream is to run for family court judge. Is it my dream now? Absolutely. But it's something that developed over time, especially not especially, but because I've realized that I do have a knack for um, for making these decisions. I would not have run if I didn't have experience as a support magistrate uh, underneath me. Okay. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't know what my personality is as a jurist. I wouldn't know what it was like to be essentially in the hot seat. And through that experience, I think it's more of a calling, right? I have a knack for de-escalation, patience, an even temperament, and it's not about punishing litigants. It's not about breezing through cases so I can get on with my day and go play golf. I'm running because I want to be there. I care. It's so cliche to say, but I really do care. That's why I'm running. I'm not running because it's the next step in my career. I've never advertised that and I never will, because that's not why I'm running. I'm running because I feel that I'm called to it, that I can continue to serve the people. I've always been a public servant. So just sort of honing in on that. What you see is what you get. There's no alternate motive or some master plan.
Oh, that's amazing. You have an amazing story. You're incredibly well qualified. I wish you all the luck this November, but I know that you're going to keep working hard. And Christina, what's the website? What's the website
Oh,
people can
yes.
find you at?
electelbayadi.com.
electelbayadi.com. I will be having it in the show notes as well. And you
Thank
can
you.
go along and follow her and see more about her there. Christina, thank you so much. Good luck in the
Thank
fall
you.
campaign.
Thank you. We'll continue working hard. Thank you so much, Dustin.
Thank you for coming on. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was my interview with Christina El-Bayadi, Democrat running for family court, a great advocate for children and families in Central New York, and already doing the work of the family court. So I hope you'll consider voting for her this fall. Coming up this week on Weekly Wonk, I'll be doing a weekly wonk on the annual report that we did for 2023, talking about our budget and other things that happened with the Board of Elections. It just got released because we were so busy during the spring, but it is released and it's important information to know as we go into budget season. Zoom with Czarny next week. Oh, well, actually, Commissioner Nakar next week. I'll be talking about Proposition 1, the ERA amendment. What does it mean? What's the language? And why you need to flip your ballot in the fall election to make a choice. And then next week, I will not be doing a Zoom with Czarny, but I will be doing a Czarny seminar on absentee and early vote by mail ballot. So it'll be my seminar on how to cast a request and cast a vote early by mail or use the absentee process and be able to vote by mail this upcoming November. So tune in for that. As always, you can go to dustinczarny.com and see everything that I have to offer. All content and election related news will be put on that website. You can get an email notification anytime I post. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.